I think some other people may show up. Yeah, I'm not surprised you're sick, Julia. This has been, the energy is so intense. And this Unforgiven Mother template, we're going to go into it in depth. If you don't mind, I'd like to wait a few more minutes for some other people to show up. This is being recorded, I do believe. So it will be available on my YouTube channel. I'm going to take a moment and step over and get my card deck that I used to do the original Unforgiven Mother reading, and I'll be right back. Okay. Well, let me get my cards. And I'm sorry to hear you're sick, but this energy is very intense. So we can talk about that. I don't know if there's a way for me to put you on camera. You might not want that. But if you have any thing you'd like to share, please feel free to type it into the chat. I don't expect more than a handful of people here, but I've been guided to go ahead and just do this presentation. All right, I'll be right back. Yeah, well, it's been interesting about the nature of being sick. Yesterday in meditation, I was given the guidance to see if I could break the addictive habit. Oh, I'm so embarrassed by the dust. Of recreating the past. And the Unforgiven Mother template, as you know, it can trigger you really easily. And we can go right into that pattern. It's going to be expressed differently for everyone. So, all right, it's 4:04. Julia, I'm going to wait until about maybe 5 or 10 after, and pull out some cards here. That are important to this process that we're on, and it's going to be a while that we're going to I think we're going to be in this for a bit. But I found this afternoon, once I was able to kind of catch myself moving into recreating what I didn't want, I began to feel a bit better, which is just great. Who knows? Oh, yay! You did it. Okay, I'm going to hang up because we're going to have an echo. All righty. Okay, so welcome to Cynthia, who's found her way here. That's exciting. All right. The Unforgiven Mother. Oh my goodness. So, what is this template? Where did it come from, this pattern? How were we birthed? How is our birth creative energy moved through this template? It's pretty dynamic information. And what I'd like to do today is just to connect a few dots for you. And I'll probably set up a playlist that has some videos that are in other places that you can choose to look at if you like. So, where did this energy come from? We have the attributes of the Unforgiven Mother. We know it's a feminine lineage. We know it's been passed down through matriarchal, could be your mother's lineage, Could also be from your father's side. And I hope that you don't have this on two sides of your family. That would be so sad. All right, so I've pulled up some of the original cards that I used in the reading to get going on here. And I'm going to just share these three. And I think you'll be able to see them pretty well. So we have the corn that has been blighted. We have the feminine with the hand over her mouth. She will not speak about this. She will not see it. We're not supposed to see this or speak about it. And then we have the agency here of the sorcerer. You know, that energy of black magic has been with us a long time. And we all have different in experience with that, or we might not have any experience with that. We've all, Cynthia and I were having a conversation the other day. Cynthia's just come into some awareness about what an ancient soul she is. And when you awaken into how ancient and how amazing and multidimensional you are as a being, many timelines, perhaps many expressions in the external creation. And I would myself, I don't have memories of it, but I wouldn't be shocked if somewhere in my Akashic record there's a file that I've skipped over that's the full dossier on how I was aligned with black magic somewhere or other, and how I misused co-creative energy, how I probably hurt people. And for me, that would be the legitimacy of how I came into a resonant frequency or into the spiral of, this is now why I am moving through this Unforgiven Mother template. This is why I was birthed into this lineage, because in my lifetime, I'm being given the opportunity to take responsibility for that just for me. I don't have to take any responsibility for my mother or my grandmother. That is work that they need to do. So as I've progressed in this particular lifetime, maybe you identify with this and you can see this card, but I hope it's not reversed. But this is the Wild Woman card. Yeah, we've all been, sure, absolutely, Julia. We've all been, we've been around the block so many times. I'm sure we've been down a dark alley or two. But in this lifetime, I made an agreement with my greater being that I was going to be a wild woman in this lifetime, and that I was not going to comply. And I was going to take responsibility, but I was no longer going to play the game for Team Dark. I've often joked that I'm on a kind of a repentance program, and it's been an amazing journey for me. So some of you may also, and I'm going to use that kind of language because hopefully other people will watch this in the future. Some of you divine feminines, and it's not a gender thing, may feel that you have chosen to be a wild woman in this lifetime, and there's been something in your core being that has moved you into understanding and insight and experiences of other ways of looking at the world, and how that happens is individual for each of us. So there's no judgment on how that happens. There's no one right way or wrong way or good way or best way for that to unfold. What is beautiful is that, excuse me, in the timeline that we're on now, we are in this opportunity, and I do see it as an opportunity, as intense. And I know, speaking for me over 30 years, there have been many times of, that's just when I woke up, 30 years. That doesn't even count my childhood, right? So we have a lot that we're bringing to this journey. So I wanted to just, excuse me, I'm still... I want to talk about the child that you are, the ghost dance that you may be in with your unforgiven mother. And it could be that this is a mother experience you've had in this lifetime, but it doesn't have to be. It could be that you have a memory or an echo that has shown up in this lifetime. And you may have had a mother energy that was, you know, pretty much there for you. And the beauty of this journey of the unforgiven mother is just opening into the realization, so you recognize what is true for you. Okay. Now, in my personal experience, my mother was cursed with a physical mother who had, she was so broken and so disturbed and distressed. And she had several children. Let's see, there was my mother and her twin were the oldest. Then there was my Uncle Jerry. Then there was my Aunt Jeannie. And then there was the youngest in that line. And these children all had different fathers. And my grandmother was incredibly emotionally, psychologically unstable and abusive. And her own sad story was that she was born in a southern state, the illegitimate child of an affair between, as we understand it, an Italian businessman in the community in which she was born, and her mother. And this was very, very scandalous. And it was at a time, I'm imagining the late 1800s, where this kind of thing needed to be hidden. The father, the businessman, was not interested in being outed for his indiscretion. I don't have much more detail than that, except to know that my poor grandmother lived in a basement, was kept in a basement until she was 13, when her father died. Now, imagine a young child spending most of her time alone in a basement, no socialization, being the living embodiment of a terrible secret. How heartbreaking is that? So we know how my mother's mother came into being so deeply wounded, and seriously, someone in her human nature who would be looking for love. And for many women, I'm going to put these down, in that kind of situation or circumstance, there are several pathways that we might choose to follow to try to connect with a loving partner, or some kind of a connection. And for many women who have starfire, who are graced with having starfire, and boy, was my grandmother a character. She was very energetic, and she was really creative. I mean, she was nuts, but boy, was she creative. She had a lot of power. And so she was seeking love. And as many women do, they will exchange their starfire through sexual intercourse. And this is really what the male energy is after. It's after the starfire experience. And so women who are very empowered in their sexuality, who feel very free and comfortable in their bodies, who don't have any issues or hang-ups around the experience of orgasm, these tend to be desirable sexual partners for men. And so my grandmother found a way to play the edge of, I think she wanted a husband, but she wasn't prepared to be a married woman. And I think she wanted to have, after a bit of recognition that probably wasn't going to work for her, when my mother and her twin were born, and that relationship with the father did not work out, she married someone else who was willing to be a stepdad to the twins. And then she gave birth to my brother, Jerry. And then shortly after that, she gave birth to my the next sibling, my aunt. And then it was just pretty much a really touch and go, very unstable situation for all of those children. And my grandmother was not at all equipped to be a mother. It's really sad, and I don't know about her mother, so I don't know how far back this goes, but I would imagine that a woman who would have an illegitimate child and then keep her in a basement for 13 years, probably no. Now, what really saved my mother, I think, at a spiritual level, was that her biological father was an immigrant, and he was an incredibly kind and gentle and loving human being. And so he balanced out the crazy, unstable, emotional roller coaster that was always going on in my mother's childhood home with the mother. But she got to go off and be with her biological father on weekends, and he was very patient with her. And at that time, he was, over the course of his life, he actually had more than one laundry business. And my mother would be in there with him with the laundry and sorting, and he had the patience to have her underfoot, even as a very young child. So there was a balancing for her, which I know saved my mother. And her sister, her twin sister as well, and allow them to feel something inside of themselves that they had value, because they did not have any value from their biological mother except to be a chit, a way to bring money into the household in many difficult ways for the children. So my grandmother gave her starfire away. She didn't have any respect for it. She didn't know. She was really not able to teach that to her female children. But the children all kind of managed to go off into the world fairly early and recognize that what was going on for them at home wasn't what was going on for everybody else. And all of them had an instinct to find a way out of the situation that they were in as soon as possible. Now, I met my maternal grandmother a few times. I just thought she was incredibly entertaining. I never met a woman like her. Very emotional. Some really interesting antics that went on when I would visit with her. But around the age of 10 or 11, my mother decided that the best thing for her sanity, and probably for us children, because I don't think my mother would trust her mother not to have me or my sister for a weekend and have us be in an unsafe situation with male visitors that my grandmother might have. And my mother was not up for that. So my mother made the decision to cut off all ties with her biological mother. And this was quite shocking for me. This was so shocking. And it took me a long time to understand and appreciate and respect that choice that my mother made. But the way that I experienced it was that a woman who had never hurt me physically, it just didn't happen. I mean, she would get irritated and she might yell and she would certainly scream at my cousin, the youngest of her children, but she never directed that kind of energy at me. And she was a good cook and she was funny. And then suddenly she was gone. And I found that challenging. And my mother was not willing to go into a lot of detail. So we have, what are the attributes of a woman who has starfire? Her starfire is she's not sure how to use it for her best and highest good. She doesn't have a female, possibly, mentor in her life, or maybe she does. Maybe there's some people on the periphery who come forward and steer and guide. And that did happen for my mother, which made it possible for her to find her own life path. But as a mother herself, because her life had been so unpredictable and unstable, my mother's choice was everything by the rules, everything by the book. And I do mean everything. And so she was very excited when I was born. I think she had a lot of hopes and ideas for who I might become, as all mothers do. But very early on, the control issues began showing up. I do mean very early on, before I could walk. And they continued right through my adolescence. And the relationship was a kind of a very codependent one, although I didn't know that word. But my mother recognized that I had starfire. She had begun to appreciate the value of starfire. I was not sexual. I was incredibly creative, but I was just, girl child being really very imaginative, very talented in many, many ways. And what happened was my mother began to recognize how she could just take a little of my starfire and take a little. Whenever I got an award for making art, she could take a little as a proud mother. No one would fault her for that. Good student, always she would just take little. And what that led to was I became trained in it was an unconscious dynamic. I mean, it wasn't like we sat down at the dining room table and she said, okay, I need some of your starfire. Ante up. What this became was this relationship of blighting the corn. So she recognized that with what I had been born with and the advantages that had come toward me because of my father's family, which she was very happy to have an advantage, to take advantage of that, she began to see that by the time I became a woman, I would have surpassed her in many, many ways. And once I recognized my own star fire and wanting to move forward in my own life, on my own path, that there would be a very good chance I would no longer be willing to share my star fire with her through my achievements. And so she very carefully kind of wrangled her way around dynamics and perceptions, and which then led to my being unable to recognize whether or not I was being loved. Now, it took me many years to appreciate that I wasn't actually emotionally bonded and loved by her, but that she did her best to be a good and decent caretaker. So that is the template that we're working through now, because it's a very, very, very old story of the jealous mother. And the jealous mother is jealous of the child in the family who has the most starfire. And at the same time, she can be very critical and hurtful to other children, biological or otherwise, in the family, who she recognizes don't have quite as much starfire. Very painful dynamic between siblings. So what I'd like to do is turn your attention, if you're not familiar with the story of the Aeon Sophia or the Gnostic Gospels, and the story of how the Aeon Sophia, supposedly living in the galactic core, the center of our Milky Way galaxy, with other gods and goddesses, big powers, big energies, decided on her own to create life. And without her approval and consent of her cohort, her male partner. And in the story of the Gnosis story, that is the fall, and that is how the dense version of what we think of as the planet Earth came into form. And also because when she became so engaged with this incredible, fun science experiment that she generated, and she was fascinated by the material realm, the Gnostics describe her as having fallen into matter. And in her falling, because she was absolutely, completely disoriented, she doesn't know where she is, and she doesn't know what's happening or why it's happening. She threw off source spark as she was tumbling. And that source spark she actually directed a chunk of it at some energies that were now helping, just contributing to her being more confused and disoriented, because she was creating life as she fell, but she didn't know what she was doing. And in the Gnostic perspective, from their perspective, that is how a group of non-organic, non-human, they're not alive, but they have consciousness. They are not source sparked. They have a little spark of Sophia, or you could think of her as Gaia. But they don't have enough of it to be creative. They only have enough to create copies of what has already been something that they could observe. So from the Gnostic perspective, this happened eons and eons and eons and eons and eons ago. And from the perspective that has come through my own guidance and information, this is just one part, one dot that we want to connect about where the Unforgiven Mother template came from, because the goddess Aeon Sophia is the first Unforgiven Mother. Okay, you guys are still here. That's great. So after the Aeon Sophia began her fall, she eventually kind of pulled herself together. Meanwhile, the archons are buzzing around over there. She gave them enough of herself to create their own environment. And then as she continued to fall and become oriented, the emotions that she was feeling, this is according to the Gnostics, became features of what we know as planet Earth. The trees, the mountains, the water are all living reflections of her expressing her emotional reality through the elements of earth, air, water, fire, and ether, because she was an etheric being. So we have a relationship with the archons, but we're not aware of it. They know who we are. They see who we are. They are absolutely infuriated that we were given the full plate of life expression and source spark, and they were, as they imagined, shortchanged. They can only copy. They can only imitate. They can only mimic. And so when we see this template as an overlay of consciousness, that we human beings, maybe we sift through that when we're coming through. I don't know that everyone does, but I know some of us do. And then we have this struggle with the archons, and we're completely unaware that we're in that struggle. And so many indigenous cultures, and I really think it's beautiful that you will find the term Spider Woman in indigenous cultures as, not all of them, but that's the creation mythology, that there was a feminine energy that spun the web of creation, and she still spins the web of creation. And so for some of the first fully embodied in dense materiality humans, that was their memory, their dream space memory of how they came to be. So now we have this dynamic that has been repeated and repeated and repeated and repeated and repeated, but never fully addressed. And so the part of what I can understand about the galactic core, which has now become a black hole, is that Sophia was returned to the galactic core, and in that journey back to the galactic core here in this galaxy, there were many observations about the power of what she had done in generating the dense material world. And some of the other aeons in that galactic core decided that that was a form of creation that they really wanted to play with. And they separated themselves from source creation to establish their own set of rules, and in which they were no longer functioning in alignment with source. And it is in the dense material realm that human beings are feeling this material, because we are made of electrons and molecules and atoms and elements, and all of that beingness of who we are is based in our material connection to the planet. I mean, the food we eat, the water, that all of that material comes from the dense material version of this mother. And the etheric and higher dimensional expression of her is something that many of us feel is hidden from us. We have to search for it. We don't necessarily feel it immediately in our bodies. It depends on your genetics. And the archons, the non-organic life forms, they actually also will steal our starfire, and they will penetrate our imagination, our sacred imagination, and distort it or plug into it, so that they can have a copy world of what we have created spontaneously and organically. And over many eons, this relationship has become quite distorted. And we're in the mix of feeling now how much control the inorganic intelligence that the Aeon Sophia inadvertently gave birth to is trying to assimilate, take over, co-opt our organic world, our organic life. And it is through that template that we encounter the dark, the unforgiven mother. Sophia is the unforgiven mother as far as the archons are concerned. And they have our consciousness, and they can impact how we think, the choices that we make, and we're completely unaware of it until we're in distress and disturbance. And even then, we may not understand what's happening. So the attributes of the unforgiven mother, which I wrote about in my blog post, I would say go and look there if you haven't read it. I'm going to post another blog post probably later today or early tomorrow, because more information has been coming through for me. As like with Julia, this has been so intense for me that my biology is struggling to clear it. But what I did receive today is a beautiful piece of guidance that came in last night, was that I needed to really be completely aware of what I was thinking and how I was going to habitually, without consciously intending, to recreate the past pattern of my own mother, who was able to follow all the rules, and create a copycat life that looked to her like the real thing, but there was no starfire in it. And so because there was no starfire in it, she spent her starfire on sex and clothes and getting approval. I couldn't feel the connection. I couldn't feel it. And so one of the things that I needed to do was I was growing up and becoming a woman and choosing how I was going to interact. I wanted to have children very much. What would I be giving to my children? What would be the quality of attention and intention? Because I wanted my children to feel connected to me emotionally, and I wanted to feel connected to them emotionally, but not in a way that was controlling or strangled their creativity. And I didn't succeed 100%, but I did succeed a fair amount. And it's been very interesting for me in this last week to just have to kind of look through all of it. And I'm writing about it. I have a feeling this is maybe going to turn into a book for me, because these women are going to be familiar with this dynamic, with this story. They're not going to have to dig very deep to find this. And having slightly different perspective on it and being able to maybe connect a few dots that they haven't already connected, and having an understanding of starfire. Starfire is the energy that creates galaxies. And we do carry that energy within us, which is why human beings are such phenomenal. I mean, look at what we can make, right? It's astonishing. And this is a function of our starfire. And when we learn how to use it properly, wow. Julia, yeah, stories are similar, right? Yeah. Woo! So I feel that as sick as I've been, this is part of my mission work as a feminine energy in the dynamic of sacred union. And I understand now in the last couple of days that this isn't something that is going to be mine to have to fix, or women. We're not going to have to fix this. We would not be able to. This is a huge galactic template. But if we can discipline ourselves and we can focus on staying connected to source and to our starfire, then we can choose to learn how to replenish that starfire. And I know Cynthia's been in some of my courses, and we do learn how to do that, so that we're not depleted by this habitual giving away. You know, you have the expression, don't give away your power. Women, don't give yourself away. Don't be a doormat. We're all talking. It's just talking about starfire and powerful organic creativity. So we're about 50 minutes, and so I'm going to stop talking, and I will put a link when this gets organized. And I did a reading earlier, which it's loading up right now on YouTube, and I will redirect this content to the Patreon page. And so, do you have some comments or questions? I mean, this is such a big deal. I talked to 3 other women today who, it's like, what the heck is going on? Something radical just shifted. Wow, Julia, right. I feel you on that. You had to get out, right? You had to get out somehow to hold on to some part of you. Yeah. Cynthia was able to escape through her ability to create art. I did everything I could. But I kept getting pulled back into the dynamic, because in coming through my mother's lineage, yeah, she attached to your sister, of course, when you left. That's of course. My mother attached to my brother. This is difficult because we have to let all of that go, and we have to recognize that we entered into a contract, literally in utero, but we didn't know that's what we were doing, in exchange for literally life support. So it's pretty creepy. Thank you for your comments, Julia. Cynthia, do you have anything? You know, Cynthia's working this hard. We've been chatting, and Cynthia's a colleague. I don't know if there's something you want to add to the conversation, but I will put on the Patreon page, I will upload more videos that are just an opportunity for you to go poking around and find out information that you may not be aware of that may emanate for you. I do want to share a meditation that came. I'm going to move myself because we're getting a lot of end of day light. And you'll find, as you go in and ask, and as you're feeling, if you're feeling sick, or if you're looking at this and you're doing a kind of a, wait, who was that woman? What was my mother? What happened, actually? You can go into your Starfire Heart Center here, and you can ask to be guided to a journey or a soul retrieval, maybe more than one, that really feels authentic to you and that will bring you a way to move forward. Okay, now Julia's saying, I'm going to read the chat for those of you who are watching. I don't know whether you'll be seeing the chat or not. Julia is commenting that she had the feeling that things have stepped up lately, yes, and that Team Dark is scrambling, yes, to attach to anybody who is ascending, because they're desperate to step up. They're desperate to survive. They just don't want to starve to death. Cynthia is sharing that, yes, sharing, communicating with our voices, with each other, makes all the difference. And without it, it is much more difficult. If perhaps, I don't know if it's impossible, but it would be very, very hard to connect all the dots and find what you need to find, the information that you need to find, so that you can actually let all this toxicity go. Not just from your emotional space, not from your mental space. I am talking at a cellular atomic level. Woo! Yeah. Boy, does that resonate. I'm starting to feel a little bit. Cynthia, I'm starting to feel my little tingles again, which, you know, I haven't been feeling for the better part of a week. Okay, so let me share this very simple visualization. Just visualize that there is a space, that it is like, it's like I like discs. I like bubbles and discs because of where I come from. But imagine that you are climbing up a ladder and you're just about to the cusp of a disc made of light. It could be crystalline if you're comfortable with that. And what was so precious for me in this visualization was that I was allowed to feel that the ladder was actually made crystallized material of my tears, that I never got to cry. Because I stopped crying at an early age, there was no point. No one was going to comfort me. So I'm climbing up this crystalline ladder, just a few rungs, and I'm, there are beings there to greet me, and I land and come over the lip of this space. And as I put my feet on this new disc space, the ladder completely falls away. All of the tears melt, then all evaporates, so there's no going back into that dynamic. And what was presented for me, which I really appreciated, was a very restful, quiet space where I was actually nurtured and comforted and given the message that I could take all the time I needed to heal this in me, transmute it in me, and that was all I was responsible for. That unlike some of this other sacred mission work that we've done where we've taken on a group dynamic and we've all worked together on it and we've helped each other on it, the instruction for me, it may be different for you, was this is only work that you have to do, and you could only have to do it for yourself. And then when you're healed and you feel clear and strong again, and your energy system is able to bring in new starfire, which we're entitled to have forever. We're eternal beings, right? Our etheric bodies, our energy bodies, we can always be bringing energy in to those parts of ourselves. And once we're rested, that then we are ready to just simply step into the new creation. And it wasn't characterized as 5D. It wasn't characterized as anything other than Source's new creation. And that we simply needed to stay and rest and allow ourselves to heal, so that any sense of lack or fear or not being good enough or being unlovable or unworthy that we may be carrying in our genetic template, that we can transmute and release it as neutral energy. And that's the giveaway. You'll see in the reading I did today that there's a beautiful opportunity to give away our star power, our starfire, but only to Source. Only to Source. And only when we're ready. Oh, yeah, it does feel kind of good, doesn't it, Cynthia? Woo, yeah. So just those two things, and just be mindful to step into an independent, you can use this disc platform as your space, where anything that is being directed at you, at your mother, because she is furious now that you're letting this go, you don't have to worry about it. It can't reach you anymore. And you're safe and loved and guarded and protected. And this sickness that we're in, Julie, is just a toxicity. Decades of toxicity, because even when we weren't there, even when we weren't with her in her physical space, because of the nature of this template, she could still be latched into us. And if she couldn't feed off of us, she was sending a great deal of negative intent. Okay? So any other last comments before we close this down? And thank you for taking so much time to join in. I really appreciate it. And I know this sounds like so Looney Tunes, but if you can feel it in your body, you can feel that there's a resonance of perhaps something true in it for you. And then you can just take it and go explore and feel. But be gentle, be very gentle. And there's no rush. And it's not something that you have to fix. Oh, good, Cynthia. Thank you for that comment. You're welcome. I'm glad to feel well enough to be doing it. Julia says, yes, about 4 years ago, I experienced the possession of me, yes, for 3 days, yes. And that was mind-blowing. Julia, congratulations for being aware of that and then for being able to work your way out of that. It's very scary stuff. And it is happening now again for people who are completely asleep in their lives. And it's actually happening for those of us who've been working so much to just get through it. And we're feeling the incursion. We're feeling the I mean, I had a literal thing come out of my third eye last night. An inorganic thing, a metallic looking thing that really felt, Julia, like somebody was going to try really hard to get a hold of me. And I'm just, no. So, beautiful, Julia. Yes. You are now you are empowered in letting the contract absolutely neutralize. You don't have to maintain it. No guilt, no shame, no judgment. Oh, yeah. Okay, Julia, well, you and I are going to have another session, and we need to talk about the sleep paralysis because you can, if your daughter is willing to listen to you, you can assist her with that, and I can share some information with you about how that works. Okay, wow, this has been, this is the first for me on live YouTube. So thank you very much for participating and helping me share this because, as I said to Cynthia, when two or more are gathered in the energy of Source, Source is present. And we can feel that. So there are 3 of us here right now, and we're connected. And we're connected to Source, and we can make our choices. But the hard part, man, I couldn't believe between yesterday and today how many times my mind wanted to simply recreate the past in every aspect. The past of how much I was coughing, the past about, I mean, it was like ridiculous how much recreating I was just with my thoughts. And when I caught myself, what I'm experiencing as symptoms completely lightened up. Okay, so we're learning, and boy, I'll tell you, Julia, between you and me and Cynthia, I mean, we have been around the block several times, and we're still learning. We're still experiencing new things and learning and able to support each other. So thank you very much for being here. Yeah. Thanks, Cynthia. Cynthia's is good validation. All right, I appreciate you. I appreciate you in all that you're doing. This is a time for us to really love, respect, honor, and cherish who we are. We have no need to steal our starfire from each other because we have our own. Yeah? Beautiful. All right, ladies, I'm going to close this down and go get another cup of tea. And yeah, it's great that we're cleaning up this crap, isn't it? And we don't have to do it. We just have to agree to share what we're willing to share and let Source handle it. Source will handle it. And there's a big step in trust. All right, ladies, thank you very much. I hope this recorded well and that other people can get to see it. And I appreciate you as well. Bye for now, and check out the channel because there's a new reading that relates to all of this. I hope that I won't have to do that many more, but I'm just going by guidance. Thanks. Feel better, Julia. Bye-bye.